Well, well, well. If you're wondering what's been going on with the sun for the past 24 hours, you've come to the right place, the Daily Space Weather, a regular feature at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news, and thanks for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists, and welcome. This is the past 24 hours in SDO 304 angstroms, which is ionized helium, and let's add 193 angstroms. Most of the activity is going on in the southern hemisphere. We did recently see an M-class flare earlier just this morning, but also some growth and some major plasma reorientation happening in the north. Let's take a closer look at that as we just bring you the most detailed imagery of the sun and most comprehensive daily space weather you'll find in the known universe. So there are those massive sunspots in the south. Here you'll see some activity going on in the north. I'm going to let this play through a couple times because a lot going on. A lot of filaments up there. Some new sunspots forming and evaporating. We'll get to a more in-depth analysis of that later in the video. Here's a quick look at yesterday plus today's activity. Again, we've got some sunspots forming and then evaporating in the north. This one back here should get a name today, so we are expecting an uptick in the sunspot number and the radial flux. Here is your colorized magnetogram. That's yesterday plus today as well. And before we talk about things like volcanoes and earthquakes, and there's been a massive volcanic uptick, take a moment to visit the links below the video. If you haven't seen them, check them out. One of them is the link to our merch shop. So one of our most recent merch items is MAXA, which stands for Make Astronomy and Cosmology Science Again. Yeah, we've noticed some issues when it comes to these sciences. And fun fact about me, I almost became a cosmology major in the mid-1990s, but most universities did not offer stellar cosmology as a major back then. Stellar cosmology is the origin of the structure and evolution of large-scale structures in the universe. And of course, cosmology is based on our understanding of heliophysics. So the reason we think we know what's going on in distant galaxies is because we think we know what's going on in the core of the sun. And there might be some issues with that. I don't mind blaspheming basic science because there's got to be a way to move things forward. So one of our today's featured product, MAXA, Make Astronomy and Cosmology Science Again. Thanks to everybody who's picked up merch and helped support the channel that way. So check it out. There's Shivaluch producing a stratospheric injection of volcanic ash and aerosols. Also water vapor, likely making it up into the stratosphere there. Also a pyroclastic flow was generated by the most recent eruptions of Shivaluch on the Kamchatka Peninsula. So volcanic material now injected into the stratosphere for the northern hemisphere once again. So as Shivaluch explodes, it's produced up to a 52,000-foot ash plume, currently listed as a 40,000-foot ash plume. That is a flight level 400. A spectacular ash cloud drifting to the north and northwest. That major eruption took place around 6 o'clock Universal Time. Again, it produced a 52,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Please don't pole vault the caldera at Shivaluch. Also, Nishinoshima exploding, flight level 070 over Nishinoshima. Semaru exploding, flight level 140. Dacono exploding, flight level 060. It's a 6,000-foot ash plume. Popocatépetl in central Mexico exploding, flight level 220. Fuego in Guatemala exploding, flight level 140. Nevado del Ruiz exploding, 20,000-foot ash plume over Colombia from Nevado del Ruiz. Ecuador featuring Sangay and Revenador, both exploding. 21,000-foot ash plume from Sangay, 14,000-foot ash plume from Revenador, and Sabancaya exploding as well in Peru. 24,000-foot ash plume. It's a flight level 240. Next, global seismicity. A brief rundown of this. It's been fairly calm for the past 24 hours of earthquakes. Seismic activity listed as low. There's a 90-day bar graph to help put all of that in context. And here's the past 24 hours. So we're just going to scroll the list here. We'll cite quakes over a 5 magnitude, and there weren't many. I think only 1 or 2. Papua New Guinea had a 5.1. That was at 21:13 Universal Time yesterday evening. Also, Vanuatu had a 5.1 as well. There is a location of that one. And Indonesia had a 5.0. So that's the volcanic and earthquake rundown. And let's get back to space. So here we've put together 131 plus 171 angstroms. Again, this is another 24-hour video. Let's swap out the 131 for 304 angstroms. 2 classic wavelengths there. Ionized iron at 171 and ionized helium's ultraviolet extreme EUV, extreme ultraviolet emissions from ionized helium at 304 angstroms. And what about some 211 plus 171 angstroms? Pretty sweet. And surprisingly, the 10.7 centimeter radial flux has stagnated at 140 solar flux units. So we are expecting this to rise. So we're expecting to see this at least at 145 by tomorrow. There's the 1-year graph to put all of that in context. That's from Solon.info. The black line is the radial flux. The red line is the sunspot number. The pink line is the 30-day Wolf number. That's an average of sunspot number. And the blue line is the Potsdam AP index, which is an average of earthly geomagnetism. Space weather enthusiast dashboard forecasting some geomagnetic unrest late in the day today and early in the day tomorrow. I'm not sure how accurate that's going to be. We have heard some reports of a possible glancing blow, a minor brush by of a coronal mass ejection. We didn't forecast any of those to be earthly directed. So that's the forecast from NOAA. Our forecast is a little different there. We don't expect really anything at the moment. It's pretty clear sailing between Earth and Sun. So here's the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. Again, we're in a pretty geomagnetically calm situation here, although there is still a coronal hole high-speed stream showing up. It has weakened since yesterday. It arrived early, and it's departing before anybody forecasted the arrival, really. So that's the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. Here's the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. And if you want to share fantastic imagery for and from us over at Twitter, make sure you follow us over there at Twitter. And we'll let that play through since it refreshed to show a full 4-hour span. So the current conditions are, in terms of the planetary K index, KP3, geomagnetically calm conditions. And again, we've seen a subsiding of the solar wind, measured out here at Lagrangian point 1. The current situation is solar wind speed about 450 kilometers per second, solar wind density about 7.5 protons per cubic centimeter. The rest of that is pretty unremarkable. We've seen a declining solar wind since yesterday's daily space weather video. And let's look at magnetic data next. GOES magnetometer there showing some rather rapid variations, also some maneuvering by both the GOES 16 and GOES 18, evidenced by the arc jet moments. Those produce plasma, which can affect the magnetometer readings, so they are listed. Yeah, information's not being hidden by NASA. You've got access to tons of it, so why not use it? Speaking of which, here's a National Solar Observatory data. This is, by the way, derived from 51 ground-based magnetometers and magnetometers on stereo A over here and stereo B over there. Current situation is Earth is in a North Pole-oriented current sheet, kind of right in the middle of it. No changes coming anytime soon. Just keep in mind that the magnetic environment can change suddenly with basically no warning. Next, our line of sight field plot. Again, Earth is right in the middle of the North Pole oriented current sheet. Solar B field here depicted in blue. That's the field that goes through the magnet. It's sort of like a product of the overlapping of the North and South polar fields. And that brings us to coronal holes. So there is the coronal hole situation. North Pole coronal holes facing the Earth at the moment. We can expect little bouts of high-speed coronal hole wind stream here for the next week or so, because these coronal holes have demonstrated that they are able to reach Earth, or at least Lagrangian point 1. So expect some more coronal hole high-speed streams sputtering through in the coming days. Let's take a look at the view from SGO 211 angstroms. So these are all North Pole coronal holes. So this is north, this is north, this is north, etc. Let's move to sunspots next, as there have been some changes. All right, so we've got up to 3276 now. And I expect to get at least one new named group. It's this active region right here. That is a sunspot last I checked. That should be 3277. Also expecting an uptick in the radio flux. The most likely place to see major flares remains this giant, very complex sunspot 3272. It produced an M-class flare just a couple hours ago. We'll show you imagery of that. First, the full disk view featuring SDO Continuum plus 171 angstroms to help show those active regions. You can see some of that plasma orienting to the magnetic field lines. Let's drop the 171 angstroms. So this should be 3277, named later today. Might even be 3278, as this group still exists. So we're expecting two new named sunspot groups today. A moderate uptick in the radio flux, maybe 145 for the 10.7 centimeter radio flux going into tomorrow. Here's the full disk view, and let's move to energetic particles and solar flares. Now, we recently had an M-class flare. Did it produce any solar energetic particle events, or SEPs? Well, the place to look for that would be the ghost proton flux. And the answer is no. No spikes. No relativistic particles there showing up. And peak flux of that M-class flare was about 10 after 10 universal time. It was an M1.38 class flare, and let's take a look at some good wavelengths for that. 131 angstroms fits the bill. It takes 10 images per minute. And right at the end of the video, you'll see that M-class flare coming out of the northern part of sunspot 3272. And there it is. We've also got 94 angstroms. So yes, likelihood of large solar flares is actually very high, along with the likelihood of coronal mass ejections. All right, next we invite you to take a look up. This is skyandtelescope.org's star chart, as we like to know what's going on above our heads, and so we like to show this daily. Just click the Now button after you've input your information, and you see Jupiter and the Sun are nearing their alignment. That's got a lot of people spooked. And let's take a brief moment here to cover an article from SciTech Daily. So, interesting article from SciTech Daily. Were you aware that the full moon is associated with higher Suicide rates? Yeah. Higher suicide rates. Oh, another interesting story there that we may have to cover at a later time. Is it because of the interruption of circadian rhythms? Could be an indication that your sleep chamber is not dark enough. If you're having bad times during the full moon, make sure your sleep chamber is completely dark. It doesn't matter if you wear a blindfold. Your skin has photosensors on the outside. Just a little quick blurb there about full moon showing some association with higher suicide rates. Anyway, let's take a look at the solar system forecast. Here's where things are today on the 11th. Let's advance this 1 week. Here's where things will be on the 18th. We will have a crescent waning moon only a couple days from new moon at that point. And let's take a look at coronagraphs. So today we've got yesterday's coronagraphs. Coronal mass ejection activity was kind of minor yesterday, at least on those 24 frames. And here are a few more frames from today. Let's take a look at some more in-depth information here. We'll show stereo A also. Stereo A located here on the left. Soho Lasco C3 on the right. Now, please pay attention to the time and date stamps. We're showing CMEs there from the 9th into the 10th. And here comes some more up-to-date data. Looks like a very high likelihood for additional coronal mass ejections. We've got a huge amount of plasma there suspended. It looks like one might be starting to propagate right here. I don't know what happened there. Let's just forget about that and just check out these last few frames here. That could be some plasma about to advance there. That could be a CME propagating. Let's look at some 24-hour videos, at least the data that we have. Get a little bit closer there. I don't suspect there are any Earth-directed coronal mass ejections. And by tomorrow, the Jupiter-Earth-Sun alignment will be moving out of alignment. You can see Jupiter sliding across the bottom of the screen there. Next, we'll talk about filaments, and we do have some massive filaments on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. Once again, likelihood of coronal mass ejections, nearly 100%. It was kind of a light day yesterday. And this one here is certainly quite huge. Also a very dense one down here. And here's a 24-hour video in 193 angstroms. So quite a rapid uptick here in the past few days. Some people who are grand solar minimum cultists were probably celebrating that, oh, we're going to get down to 0 sunspots. It didn't happen, and that was no surprise to our regular viewers. Next, the past about 2.5 hours here from the GOES 16 SUVI. Little prominence kicking up over here in the northwest. And lots of plasma filaments. I mean, you can see prominences down here around the south heliographic polar region. Huge prominences here in the southeast. Prominences around the north heliographic polar region. There are some filaments hanging out up there. So there's certainly a large potential for coronal mass ejections and for large flares. So let's move to bonus features here. We'll start with satellite charging hazards. And we do have some surface charging hazards here over the Central Pacific once again. Oh, wait, they've subsided. All right. Scratch that. It's clear sailing. No charging hazards for satellites at the moment. GOES electron flux here has dipped almost exactly to where we forecasted it. That's the past 3 days. And no surprise there to our regular viewers. We've seen a big dip in electron flux as we see the coronal hole high-speed stream impact. And thanks for leaving a comment, Tinman1057. Good morning to you as well. And may you also live long and prosper. So there's the forecast. We're expecting just a little bit higher levels there. That's almost exactly where I forecasted it yesterday. If you don't believe me, watch yesterday's daily space weather video. We've only been doing this for pushing 6 years. It has a tendency to allow us to forecast things nobody else in the known universe is able to. Anyway, here's the 1-year graph to put it in context, and you can see that precipitous dip. That is a coronal hole high-speed stream impact. Or it's at least associated with one. Next, we'll show the F layer of the ionosphere, which is, by the way, where the GOES 16 and GOES 18 measure those electron fluxes. They happen at the F layer of the ionosphere, located at about 300 kilometers of altitude. Here's the vibrational frequency alone. We show it daily on the channel. Not sure if this is available in archival form. We just don't worry about it. Our videos are an archival form. Because you never know when you're going to get answers to questions not asked when you immerse yourself in the data. Here's the anomalogram for the ionosphere the past day. That's anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. We are seeing, once again, significant ionospheric low-frequency anomalies over North America. We'll let that play through one more time and then show you the latest image before we move on to the total electron content. So there's the latest image, 12 o'clock noon Universal Time ionogram and 12 o'clock noon Universal Time anomalygram. Total electron content depicts the free electrons up to the inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt. A run of about 12,500 miles. Here are the free electrons in that space. Again, that's from about 12,500 miles, where your GPS satellite is located, all the way down to your handset. Free electrons cause signal refraction. Most of those errors occur around the equator at noontime. Around the equator, around noontime, I should say. And since we've showed the global view, let's show the North American view. This is the anomaly from the 10-day average. So low electron contents here showing up over at North America. Next, the latest solar imagery. All right, let's take a look at some magnetic fields. That is beta gamma delta class, although it's not as complex as it was yesterday, so its likelihood of producing large flares may have dropped a little bit here. This group here is, well, it's certainly beta gamma class. So we've got two main umbrae there, a leading South Pole umbra. Looks like it might be a trailing South Pole umbra also. Well, that one's not fully in view yet, so let's just not worry about classifying it. This group up here, pretty weak. It is alpha class. I see only North Pole umbra there. And this group here is quite complex. It's beta gamma class. Maybe you could make the argument that it's beta gamma delta class at this moment. Barely. Let's take a brief look at these new groups. So there's a new group right there. And behind this group, there's another one also. So expecting 3 new named sunspot groups today. Again, likelihood of large flares is quite high. Likelihood of coronal mass ejections, also nearly 100%. This is when we switch gears as we zoom in to planet Earth and move to meteorology. Now, I'm a wave chaser. And that's what I'm doing right now. So the world's largest waves are right near the Atlantic Ocean, Southern Ocean boundary. There's also some honorable mention down here in the Southern Indian Ocean. But over here, we've got a large area of 40-footers. Yeah, 40-footers. Those are some serious waves. The animation shows the surface winds, and the shading shows significant wave height. One of the many great features from nullschool.net. And let's just switch to show the surface winds of the eastern world. So there you go. There's the surface winds of the most populated portion of the planet. I mean, we've got like about 3 billion people just in this little circle. I guess that's kind of a big circle. Let's look at the jet streams. Still got some backward jet stream over the equatorial realm of Oceania there, around Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, etc. Here are the jet streams of this side of the planet. We've got a huge backward section of jet stream here over the U.S. So some jet stream there blowing a bit to the west. And we did see some lightning there over Texas in the past 10 hours, moving due south. So that is the kind of situation you'd expect to see. Here are the surface winds of the central world, and the jet streams of Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. Next, we're going to show water vapor over the Americas. Sometimes we show the visible. Sometimes we show shortwave radiation. Today, water vapor. It'll help show the upper level winds, and it also shows the most likely places to see clear skies. Yeah, where you see those orange areas. Of course, the driest air makes sense, right? Not a lot of moisture, hence clear skies over western Texas. Next, our weather.gov map. And if your location is lit, please click your location. It looks like we've got some red flag warnings for most of Connecticut and Massachusetts there. We've scrolled down to show you the key. Do your part if your location is lit by clicking your location on the weather.gov map, the National Weather Service map. And let's look at some forecasts since we've got some, oh, by the way, major flooding caused by melting snow, as we forecasted. Here's your temperature anomaly forecast. And cold temperatures are coming back to the Pacific Northwest. Anomalously cold temperatures. That's the GFS 72-hour temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius. A band of warm air stretching all the way from Arizona to New England will move toward the Great Lakes as cold air sets back in. Next, your raw temperature forecast. It's the same model, the GFS 72-hour. We're just showing temperature here as opposed to temperature anomaly. Keep in mind this is in degrees Fahrenheit. And last but not least, the pressure and precipitation forecast based on the 72-hour GFS model. So a strong series of systems here are expected to show up around New Orleans and then strike directly on the city. And then strong storms expected to move north and east. So the Gulf states and Florida is going to get some severe weather as well. Significant amounts of it. Also some snow returning to the northwest. So be aware of those weather warnings. That's going to be some severe weather there. Those could cause damaging wind, hail, and possible tornadic activity. So keep up on that. Let's take a look at our windy.com map to check and see what's going on. So I don't know, maybe somebody's on vacation, but look at a bunch of cold air in the western part of Colorado. It must be canceling out all the hot air that comes out of that state. And man, oh man, there is a lot of hot air coming out of Colorado. When I say hot air, I mean utter nonsense, propaganda. Many YouTube content creators from Colorado have been criticized for their promotion of absolute and utter bollocks, otherwise known as pseudoscience. Next, our lightning mapper. And again, we did have some lightning there moving north to south across Oklahoma there and into Texas. Quite a bit of Gulf here around, quite a bit of lightning here around the Gulf and the Bahamas and so on. The Florida Keys saw some rather extreme lightning. And let's check the real-time lightning map from lightningmaps.org to see if we've got any terrestrial strikes. Some lightning there near Houston. Hey, Galveston, there's thunder rolling in. Anyway, there's the full view. Some serious Middle Eastern lightning happening right now. Also northeastern Europe. Shout out to Eugene Bagashov. Next, again, a quick reminder, don't forget to visit the links below the video. There's a 420 sale going on where you can save 40% off all kinds of things over at the Hemp Lucid shop. So shop via our link and help the channel out that way. Link below the video as well as on the homepage at smashomash.com. Don't forget to enter the promo code SMASHOMASH for your Hemp Lucid shopping. Our homepage is smashomash.com, and welcome to the Neo Renaissance. In 2019, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we didn't commit. We promptly escaped from a maximum security social media stockade to the internet underground, where we survive as producers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the content, maybe you can hire the Smash Team. Oh, you certainly can. We've made it that way. It's our subscription services site. So check us out over there if you haven't. smashomash.com/Smash Team. If you enjoy these videos and prefer to see them continue to remain publicly visible and free for all to view and existent, consider becoming a member of the Smash Team. Oh, you'll get extra content also. And at the gold level, there's all kinds of other perks like email addresses and complimentary merch if you join at the annual paid-up subscription level. We're going to close things out with Doppler radar and some real-time imagery from the satellites. So there's a situation for vertical motion in the air column, which is what ground-based Doppler radar systems measure. And by the way, a little side note, if you've ever looked at the radar and noticed that it's, quote, raining and, quote, where you are, and you go outside and you look, and it's just cloudy, but it's not actually raining, it's not because the Doppler radar is incorrect. It's raining above you. There is material coming down, and then re-evaporating, forming back into clouds, etc. The Doppler radar is not going to be incorrect. It just may show rain that's not making it all the way to the ground. Fun fact about Doppler radar. So there's the current state of affairs. Here is shortwave radiation showing clouds and fog. That's a 3.9 nanometer infrared radiation NASA GOES interactive weather satellite. And there is the water vapor map. Again, clear skies over most of New Mexico and Texas. As we stream the video, here's your recap to close things out. Thanks for tuning in and welcome to Factsverse. Just kidding, we're not actually Factsverse. That's some other entity. Again, please support the channel. There is your clouds and fog view. And there is your water vapor view. It shows all the water vapor, not just the clouds and fog or just the precipitation. It shows all of it. And when your Doppler is not giving you the full picture, we highly recommend the water vapor map. So that's where we'll close things out. Thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. We're delighted that you found the channel and frankly surprised. We'll see you soon. Don't forget to visit the links in these type of locations.